Welcome to Success in Doses. I'm your host, Saleh. This podcast is about the real journeys behind meaningful careers, the pivots, the risks, the moments of doubt, and the lessons that shaped who we become. Each episode, I sit down with people who are building impactful lives and careers, and we break down the experiences that help them get there. Because success rarely happens overnight, it happens in doses. Let's dive in on Becoming on Purpose. Today's episode, we are talking about the cost of becoming and how confidence is built and not born. Confidence is not where the journey begins, is what you gain after you've navigated uncertainty, pushed through setbacks, made difficult decisions, but you kept showing up even when you didn't feel ready. I can attest to this firsthand. Behind every accomplishment is a story that most people never see. Every leader has questioned themselves. Every successful person has experienced moments of doubt. And every one of them has paid a price to become who they are today. And that's what we're talking about today. My guest today, and I couldn't think of a better person to facilitate a conversation on confidence, cultivating it, maintaining it, building a confidence that would stand the test of time, even when failure is in a card, and deciding to push forward anyway. But then the one and only and the incomparable Jerrica Dodd. Hi. She is a pharmacist, a healthcare strategist, entrepreneur, national speaker, and founder with nearly 3 decades of leadership experience spanning hospital pharmacy, the pharmaceutical industry, clinical research, and healthcare innovation. She earned her doctorate of pharmacy degree from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, formerly known as the FAMU, completed an ASHP accredited pharmacy practice residency at the Ohio State University Medical Center, and went on to earn 2 master's degrees. Dr. Dodd is a founder and CEO of JD3 Enterprises and the founder of Your Pharmacy Advocate LLC, organizations dedicated to advancing pharmacy leadership, empowering patients to take ownership of their health, and driving innovation across healthcare. She is also the creator and former editor-in-chief of Pharmacist magazine, where she spotlighted stories of more than 65 women in pharmacy. I'm just going to insert here. I have the immense honor and privilege of being one of those 65 women. In 2021, she was recognized as one of the 50 most influential pharmacists in the United States by the Pharmacy Podcast Network. But personally, what inspires me most about Dr. Dodd is her mission. She is passionate about helping pharmacists recognize their value, empowering patients with confidence and clarity, and inspiring women to believe in themselves enough to build the lives, careers, and dreams they were meant to create. Today, I am so excited to pull the curtain back on the phenomenon powerhouse that is Jerrica Dodd. Hi, Jerrica.
Hi, Sally.
Oh my God, we're finally doing it. And I'm so excited to be doing this. This podcast, everything that I have done since 2021 would not have existed if I never, ever, ever met you. And I think that that's where I want to start with your journey, because one of the first things that we get from you is just how incredibly confident and sure you are of yourself. What has that been like? How did that come about? How did you start just showing up as I am that girl?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't start that way. And I remember when I first started, I was still working in pharma, and I decided that I was going to create Your Pharmacy Advocate because of my own journey supporting my parents in their health journey, and then my own brain surgery journey in 2016. So in 2018, when I decided to show up, and I don't know if I've told you this story before or not, but I was at a retreat of single women, and we were all sitting around talking about dating.
Yeah.
Dating or lack thereof. And I remember, it was almost like I started having a conversation with the ladies that I was in conversation with, but then it was almost like I was having a conversation with myself. Like I was having an out-of-body moment.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't have problems meeting men, they just won't commit.
Mhm.
And then I continued talking and saying, because I don't commit to myself. And it was like no one else was in the room, even though there were other ladies in the room that were in conversation with me. But it was like that moment was
Yeah.
like, and so I remember leaving the retreat. So let's say that was on the first night of the retreat. That was on Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
And on Sunday, when I emerged and I'm leaving this retreat, I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going home to quit my job. And I remember the retreat organizer was like, wait, no, that's what you should do. No, don't do that. But somewhere I found this confidence of, you know what the problem is? And so then for the rest of the weekend, it had nothing to do with dating or not dating or men. It really had nothing to do with that. It was like, I have to commit to me. And so I would say that if I had to look back and say a hallmark moment, that was one along this confidence journey.
Yeah.
And so then I had already started building your pharmacy
Yeah.
advocate, but not with the kind of confidence that I left that committing to myself.
Yeah.
Do this. And so I remember going forward and I did a magazine cover. I did the back cover of a magazine, which is where I met Dr. Leslie Hodge because she was on the front cover of a magazine and then decided, you know what, I think I want to launch a magazine. And so I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I decided to launch Pharmacist and got mock-ups, got my designer to give me a mocked-up cover. And I started seeing myself on that cover of a magazine that didn't even exist yet.
Yeah.
And so there's something about when you look at yourself and not from a place of arrogance, not from a place of vanity, but when you look at yourself before you do a thing and go, I'm going to do that thing, and start to already operate like you've already done that thing.
Yeah.
Now, when I look at the covers of the magazine, I'm like, I did that thing.
Yeah.
But before I hadn't always done it. And I remember someone saying to me, if you're going to get in front of whatever business you're going to be in front of, then you got to get out there. You got to be in front of it, because I wanted to be behind the scenes and just kind of, I wanted to sweep up and mop after everything was over in my own business. Right?
Yeah.
And so that is and I had no idea when all of that was happening. I had already started coaching, but not at the level that when you came my
Yeah.
way, I wasn't. And so all of these things just started happening. And I just remember someone saying, if you want to get ahead of that business, you got to get out in front of it. And so whether I had the confidence or not, I had to.
Yeah, because it sounds, I mean, what you're talking about where like you had this light bulb moment, I think that for a lot of us, we don't really think that it's going to happen incidentally like that. We think that the confidence is going to come from the credentials and the many, 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 many things that have to be attached to our name, and that's going to be the source of our confidence. And I think that's why, like how you discovered it in a retreat, in a conversation, it makes it so powerful. And so it sounds like you didn't necessarily have the next steps figured out.
No, absolutely not.
What were those moments, or how did you navigate the uncertainties that came with doing the thing, even if next and next and next aren't clear? Okay, so real quick, if you're enjoying this conversation, go ahead and rate and review the podcast. It helps more people find the show and keeps the conversation going. Okay, so let's get back to the conversation.
Well, one, I remember when I was launching or preparing to launch Your Pharmacy Advocate, I couldn't even tell you, if you had called me, if you had known me and you called before the launch and said, well, what does it cost if I want to be a patient? What would a consultation cost? I couldn't have told you. I had no idea. But I just kept saying, because, as pharmacists, you've heard me say this before, we get ready to get ready for a long time. We get ready to get ready. We have meetings about the meetings that we've already had, and we rehash and we relitigate, and then we go get more credentials.
Yes.
Because if I could just but I will tell you, so anyone who's listening to this, know that when Sally landed at my doorstep. She never said, well, what degrees do you have? She never asked me if I was
That's
licensed to
crazy.
practice pharmacy in any state. She never asked me anything about any credentials. She didn't care
Nope.
what training, what certification I did or didn't have. She didn't even ask me if I had a coaching certification. So for those of you who want to coach, understand that that's nice, but it's not. What people want to know is, can you help me solve my problem? That's all she
Indeed.
wanted to know was, could I help her
Indeed.
solve her problem? She
Yeah.
wasn't interested in what credentials I bought. So if you spend all this time getting ready to get ready, and I am definitely a lifelong learner, and I think
Yeah.
education is great,
Yeah.
certification is great, but if you do it in the place of moving forward, it's stall tactics all day long.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It is 100% true. The thing that I was struggling with at that moment, and I remember it because the problem I was trying to solve was very clear to me. And after expressing it to you, it kind of fit right like a puzzle because you possessed all of those skills. I was scared to bring this passion project that I have held so close to my heart. I was scared to bring it out of the shadows. And I was looking for someone to help me nurture the fear. And what you did was be like, listen here, look here. It's like the fear is going to be present, but you need to get this out there because the people who need it are looking for you. You're looking for them. And the only way you guys are going to come together is if you build up the courage to bring this thing out of the shadows. And as much as Resi Prep has exploded, I still get scared at launch, right? Like it doesn't go away. I still get scared at launch, but the fear of launch is coupled with a little bit of excitement because I'm going to meet a whole host of new people. And I want to know from you when you look at all of the ways in which you've helped so many of us effectuate our potentials and really lean into what we know inside of us we can do, but have been scared, unsure, or uncertain to pursue. How does the personal transformation translate to, I'm going to put this and push this to other people? I would like to see other people discover their potential the way I have.
Well, one of the things that I had to do was learn to tell my story.
Yeah.
And when I learned to tell my story, I knew that the people that were supposed to be in front of me were going to be in front of me. So when I started that magazine in 2019, I had no idea, other than the people that I could see right in front of me, who
Yeah.
some of them were coaching clients, some of them were dear colleagues in that magazine. But what I knew was that I knew 11 women that I believed would trust me to get behind me in a magazine, first issue. And I didn't see the remaining 50 plus women that would come across my path, even more than that, because everybody that crossed my path did not end up in the magazine. So I couldn't see those people.
Yeah.
But what I kept doing, number one, was putting myself out in front, which is why I was on the cover of the magazine.
Yeah.
And even when I was, my finger would shake like this every time it was time to hit the return key and the enter key to publish. And then because every one of your pictures had a little small picture of mine. So
Yeah.
you might have been seeing different people, but you were seeing the same picture of me over and over again. And so one of the things I think that helped me not focus so much on, oh my gosh, I am out here, was that I was sharing my platform to help
Yes.
elevate other women.
Yes.
So my focus was on the women that I coached, the women that were featured in the magazine. And at the time when I was taking care of patients, helping those patients better their health. So when my focus was definitely outward, it kind of took the fear of, oh my God, that is
Yeah.
me. That is me. And so sometimes I would go and I'd come home and I'd see the magazine, just flying around. And I'm like, oh my God, that was me. That is me. However, I think it's so important to understand that just because you build your self-confidence, it doesn't mean that the fear goes away.
Yeah,
I
talk
still
about
have
that. Talk about that because we are chasing confidence because we really believe that that small vibration in the back of you don't know what you're doing. What do you think you are doing? That confidence is going to get rid of that. Can you talk
no,
about
it doesn't. And the thing that I would encourage you to do, because, there was a time when my confidence was, okay, publishing the magazine with me on the cover.
Yeah.
And okay, now I've done that. And
Yeah.
so your confidence rises. And so it's an interesting place to be, because I do believe that you don't want to read your own hype, if you will, because
Mhm.
that's not the confidence you're trying to build.
Yeah.
But when I really embraced my own story and knew that there were people who I could talk and they would end up in front of me, because there's a piece of you that is the same as me. We may not
Yeah.
have the exact same stories, but there was enough of my story that resonated with you and your story, though we've
Yeah.
had different experiences,
Mhm.
that once the right people got in front of me, that's a confidence booster. I'll tell
Absolutely.
you, sometimes confidence doesn't always come in the moment as well, because as a coach, I mean, I have had numerous coaching clients that I have sat like this at the end of the day and thought, did I help? Did I help make
Mhm.
anything better? But then
Mhm.
when I open social media, or I see something somewhere, or
Yeah.
we end up speaking at the same conference, or we end up knowing some of the same people, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay." Then I'm able, so that's a confidence builder, and sometimes that's delayed, because
Yeah.
everybody that I coach didn't necessarily, in that moment or that round of coaching, didn't necessarily go on to do all the things that they set out to do. Sometimes it's years
Yeah.
before I get that feedback, like, I hear you today say, "Oh gosh, I remember what you said to me," and I don't even remember. But it doesn't mean, the confidence doesn't mean that fear will go away.
Right.
There's a book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. That confidence, to me, allows you to do it anyway,
Yeah.
because I stopped tying myself to the outcome. We in pharmacy
Mm.
school, I think that the way that we're groomed in school is not to fail your tests, not to fail your classes, not to fail the year that you're in, or you'll be a year behind, not to
Yeah.
fail, not to fail, not to fail. The other day I was talking to a pharmacy technician and I said, you wouldn't know this. I said, but I didn't pass one of my pharmaceutical calculations classes. And she
Yeah.
kinda jumped like, "What?" And I said, "And you know what? Here we are 28, 30 plus years later, it doesn't even matter."
Matter.
But if you can imagine, in the moment, it's
Yeah.
but it just seemed, I think sometimes we make the fear that we feel, we make it to be the biggest thing,
Yeah.
and then we're like, "Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
No, you're going to build confidence and feel the fear anyway. It doesn't mean that the fear will go away. It means that you can look at it and say, I recognize this. And I personally think that when you still feel fear, number one, you're human and you're still alive. And number two, I think it's a good sign to show you that you're stretching yourself. I like to
Yeah.
think of jumping from lily pads. And I remember the first time I jumped and I was like, okay, I'm not really sure if I'm going to land on that lily pad over there and if it's going to be stable
Yeah.
when I get there. But what happens is, when you start jumping from lily pads, that builds your confidence. And then you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next lily pad.
That's so true. And I think like the other thing that I feel like we must talk about is how I even got the courage to reach out. I was on LinkedIn just looking. I'm looking at this platform like I think that this platform has the potential of transforming my business, but I have no idea how. And I come across this really powerful Black woman that is showing up in her truest and most authentic self. And I'm like, who is this? So I start looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been looking for her for the permission to say that I can also show up strong and also show up with certainty around the things that I know, either through lived experiences or through just watching and making certain observation. Would you say that that authentic living has had a cost to becoming? What's been that cost that you think it's had? Okay, so real quick, if you're enjoying this conversation, go ahead and rate and review the podcast. It helps more people find the show and keeps the conversation going. Okay, so let's get back to the conversation.
One, I used to say that if I fail, it will be public. I
Right.
mean, you haven't seen me on social media in a couple years.
We miss you.
And I just remember thinking, like, no matter what happens, like, I've crossed the point that no matter what happens, whether there's a post about it, whether there's not, if I fail, which is a high bar
It
to go,
is.
well, you know what? Because that's what, if I fail, it'll be public.
Yeah.
And so, not that I ever didn't think I could fail or that I was above failing, because I had a coach who said, fail and fail often so that you can learn, get back up, and keep going. So
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of failure. But I think that I wouldn't be human if I didn't say, well, it does cross your mind because,
Yeah.
you have this life that's out there, and people have sent messages and said, hey, I don't see you anymore, are you all right?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because of a failure, if you will, but when I say I fail, it will be pretty public, because there are people that knew so much of
Mhm.
me that when I stopped being on social media, if you
Yeah.
will, then they were like, well, what happened to me?
What
And
happened?
I
Yeah.
think that when you accept that if I'm not there or if something happens, everybody will know.
Yeah.
And then you just go, oh, and that's okay.
And that's
Because when you
okay.
tell your own story, it takes the sting out of it that other
Mhm.
people may have when they try to tell your story.
Yeah.
And I think it helps you understand that. And plus, I think age helps. You know, when I
You
when
think?
I when I headed to my social media days, I was quite a bit younger, and I think age helps, where you're like, I don't care what people say. I had to develop some of that anyway,
Yeah.
but I think the older you get, where you're like, well, we all are human and everybody's living a human life.
Yeah.
And so things are going to happen in everyone's life.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who's watching this, I'm not, intimating any type of situation, if you will. However, just understanding that that's the reality. I had someone who gosh, about a month ago, who said, you know what? I used to watch you on social media and we found ourselves in the same setting. And she was like, I couldn't believe that it was actually you.
You.
But we're talking about, yeah, I haven't been on social media now in years.
Yes.
And she was like, but it was you. When I saw your last name, I knew. So literally, when I used to say, if I fail, it will be public, because you never know who's watching. I have a
Yeah.
coaching client who knew me from years ago, and we have never met in
Yeah.
never met in person, but like people just know you,
Yeah.
and they know you from when you were, when you used to, when you
Yeah.
had, when you did. And so that's sometimes a hard mantle to carry, but I think it comes with, and it's worth it, because I would say that the benefits that I've gotten out of meeting some of the most amazing people on this journey, including said company, present company, like, it was worth any fear that I ever had when I was like gonna push that button to
Yeah.
publish the magazine. It was worth all of that. It was
Yeah.
worth the fact that I could fail very publicly because of the reward I got from the work that I got to do.
That's so inspiring, but also I still can't believe that I am part of that really small circle of people that have benefited from your wisdom and guidance and mentorship. I wanted to talk to you about comparison.
Mm.
And
The thief of
comparison
joy.
it's this one-liner that everyone has. We've all heard it. Oh, comparison is the thief of joy. But I think about it as a founder, a builder, a person that is really looking to be of service and be impactful. What is happening, in your opinion, right now with how comparison is almost driving? But also, like, how do we navigate our positions as people that want to build meaningful things in handling comparison?
I think it's important to be aware of what's going on around you. When I was
Hmm.
building the magazine, it
Hmm.
used to kind of sit right here on my
Yeah.
shoulder. Well, somebody else could do this. But then
Hmm.
I used to have to get right back to it and say, yes, they could. However, I was first, and I'm going to keep running with that.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you spend too much time focused on who you compare yourself with, which is not a good thing to do, in my opinion, then you lose traction. And
Yeah.
so I would say to myself, nope, eyes back here, because I've got something to do. And the people who are meant to be with me will be with me. I didn't compare myself to any other coach. And it was interesting. People would get on my discovery calls and they would say, well, I talked to this coach and that coach
Yeah.
and this. And I would never ask the question, but so I didn't even have to compare, because they would give me the information and compare it. And they would say, there's just something different about talking to you. And so, like I said, I didn't have time to compare myself with anyone else,
Yeah.
because I knew that there was only one Jerrica Dodd. Like the lady said, I knew when I saw your last name that there couldn't be more than one Jerrica Dodd. And so I was like, that's right. And so, because there's only one Jerrica Dodd, then there's no comparison. I don't need to compare myself to person A, person B.
Yeah.
It's not because we won't be comparing the same things. And I know that the
Exactly.
people who need to cross my path, which has been all kinds of people. However,
Mhm.
the preponderance of the people that I have coached have been people who look like me.
Mhm.
I knew that there was a space for me. I didn't care how crowded it was. I didn't care who was teaching what. And I knew that the way that I coach was different, because you remember I used to say, we're going to talk about life.
Yes. Yes.
I do everything. And so
Yeah.
people like to show up with these nice little suitcases
Mhm.
and say, inside is the business I want to grow. And I'm like, pop the suitcase open and we're going to look at all the clothes and see what's in there,
Yeah.
because business, as I have said before, marriage is a
Yes.
mirror. Business is also a mirror.
Yeah.
And so if we don't address the things that are in this suitcase that we're
Yeah.
carrying around, thinking everything's all nice and neatly tucked
Yeah.
inside, then we're wasting time. And I don't know many other people who approach coaching in that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
So I say operate such that there is no comparison.
Period. And that is a complete thought and full sentence. Operate as if there is no comparison. No, but it's so serious. Like when you talk about all of life. One of the funniest memories I have about us is one day I jump on our call and we are knee deep in it. Like we are going through things, we're talking. And all of a sudden, I'm hearing my mom screaming my name from upstairs. And I'm like, what is going on? And I'm like, Jerrica, I have to go because she's living with me. She's sick. And I was like, Jerrica, I have to go. I don't know what's going on. But my mom is like yelling my name. I need to go check on her and see what's going on. You're like, go, 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 go. We'll connect later. And I run upstairs and I get to her. She's like, are you talking to Jerrica? I was like, yes. Tell her I said hi. I was so mad. I was just like, I was in the middle of talking to her and we were in the pocket. Like we were getting to some things, but it's to attest to the fact that you were fully looped in on all of the things that came with becoming pregnant while I had a terminally ill parent living at home with me, having that baby, being in the NICU, coming home with, and I just remember each time I checked in with you, it's not like that must be so hard. It's just, remember, you can do hard things. This is okay. Taking care of yourself. It was always the light with which and the positivity with which you speak and the honesty. Like you will call it what it is and just say, you're scared. That's not a real problem. You're just scared. It's like, and I'm like, am I scared or am I not trying to solve this? I was like, no, but seriously, I don't know I don't know, but you can figure it out. I just think you're scared. And I think that even now today, when I'm sitting and I want to do something radical and take what I'm building in a radical direction, like you said, fear is my tiny little companion, but it doesn't get to decide whether or not this is a journey that is worth taking or not. And to your point, the way that I felt it from you, students feel it from me. I show up asking them, wanting to know who they are, and that's not what they're expecting. They're expecting us to go through their CV and I tell them, fix this, fix that. But again, it's learning from you how powerful our lived experiences are to all of the next stages and the doors that we will force open when it's not open for us. So I'm just incredibly grateful for that. I wanted to talk about real quick JD3 Enterprises, telling us what you are working on there and developing, because, we are just dying for the day LinkedIn tells us that you're back.
Well, I will tell you this. So I have JD3 Enterprises and your pharmacy advocate, and you and your counterparts that coach with me during that time, I brought my coaching to a very slow crawl at the end of 2023 because I had been coaching since 2019. Now it's 2023. I have, still been coached myself during all of the time that I was coaching you all and moved across the country. Probably one of the biggest decisions I've ever made in my life, to leave a state where I've spent 36 of my 37 years. No, I'm just kidding. Those 36 years of my life has been lived in the state of Georgia. But to uproot everything I knew, everything that was comfortable, and say, I'm going over there, which is where I am now in Scottsdale, Arizona, and to say, I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to do it. Once I got here and all that was awaiting me, both positive, challenging, you name it, I decided to wind down coaching in 2023 because one of the things that I knew that I needed to do was I needed to adhere to all the things that I was telling my coaching clients for myself. Like I needed to abide by those same things that I was, saying to my clients. And I decided that I really needed to get my hands wrapped around my health, because if there's anything, you know my story with brain surgery and what have you, if there's anything that can get my attention, it's my health. And so at the end of 2023, going into 2024, it sometimes felt a bit of like a failure to say I'm going to stop coaching. The magazine, unfortunately, got put on a hiatus, if you will, because of some circumstances that happened there. One being my health, the other, my magazine designer suddenly lost her father. I mean, just like, it just seemed like all these things I couldn't get. Yeah, it was just, and so you're tempted to sit back and go, I failed. That this is what I talked about. I failed. But what I realized is that I think it was a very smart thing to say, I need to step back from everything.
Very bold thing to do. That I think I would argue that even more than it being smart, the courage it takes to take that type of inventory and say, you know what? It's all good and well. I could push through, but I'm going to choose me for a beat.
Again, I had to commit to myself because I don't think that I could be even the coach that I show up as today. I don't think I could be that coach if I hadn't taken that time. And I really started like walking through that phase. Like it wasn't really planned, but it was like, okay, I got to get my hands around my health. I'm diabetic. And first of all, I got to figure out why I'm diabetic. And then I've got to figure out what to do. And so to take that time, because I was very determined that I wasn't going to look like what we know diabetes to look like in our country. And so I became like my own experiment, if you will, because
why doesn't that surprise me at all?
So I was an N of one, and and so I've probably done more work recently with your pharmacy advocate because it was from diagnosis in 2021, 2023, saying, okay, I got to get off this entrepreneur train for a minute, which is something that I had never planned to do. I had no pharmacist license here in Arizona, got my pharmacist license and said, all right, what I know I can do with my eyes closed is be a pharmacist.
Man.
I'm going to do that while I focus on my health. And maybe, like I said, maybe that's an admission of failure, of what have you. I consider it to be a bit of a detour, but I'm so glad I took that detour because this year in February, I went from an average blood sugar standing, like holding, didn't budge. Average blood sugar of 355. That was the average. So we know if that was the average, then it was higher.
Wow.
So I became my own experiment while I put everything else to the side and went from an average blood sugar of 355 all the doggone time, nothing I did mattered, to an average blood sugar of about 156.
That is insanity.
No diet, no medication.
Need to have a whole other conversation right about now to just right click on that.
So, when I did that in a span of about 6 weeks, I started going, well, wait a minute, because I've been running an experiment with an N of 1, and no one has any respect for an N of 1, but I'm telling you, I've got the screenshots to show you what the CGM was telling me every day. Well, you do that? Like, they're looking at me like sideways like this, like, how did you do that? I was like, okay, I'm onto something. And so what am I going to do? That's part of my story. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to help the people who were like me, have done all the things, have eaten all the diets, have taken several different medications, and nothing was working. And so, so your pharmacy advocate probably gets more of my time these days, because now it's time to replicate that in patients. We know what an N of 1 could do, but I have to make sure that that wasn't just a fluke. And can I do that? Can I do that in a patient cohort? That's next. And then where do we go from there? I do still coach. So you asked me about JD3. I do still coach, but it's so interesting. I'm very selective. And back in the day, I used to be like, come one, come all. And I let my story really do some of the selective coaching or selective clients that I was looking for. But now I'm even more razor sharp about who, because it's a great sacrifice of time. It's a lot of pouring.
Oh, yes, it is.
So those are the things that I'm working on today. So I would say, and then I do still speak. So I would say that JD3 is still coaching, still speaking, advising, consulting. And then your pharmacy advocate is, which, when I developed your pharmacy advocate, the tagline then was partners in safe medication use. And I would say that that is definitely still a goal.
Okay.
But to be able to manage a diabetic state with no medication, no prescription.
Yeah, that's disruption. That is more than just transformation. That is disruption at its basic definition. You look amazing. You always look amazing anyway.
And fear still comes because of that word you just said. Well, that's disruption. And and I know that our healthcare system is not set up like that. It's not set up for me to say, well, yeah, I understand that you're saying my parents are diabetic, so that's why I'm diabetic. It's not set up for me to push back like I did and go, no, I don't think so, because we don't even know why they're diabetic.
Yeah.
So that brings fear. But I have now developed the confidence to know that what I need is going to be there when I need it. The people that I need to know are going to be there or come very shortly when I need to know them. And so it allows you to remember who you are, whose you are. If I could give something that it still guides me to this day, is with regard to confidence, because you don't always feel it.
No.
But you want to be sure to check your heart, check your mouth, and check your circle. Because there's scripture that says, out of the heart, the mouth will speak. So what's coming out of my mouth is likely coming from my heart. So that's why I say you've got to check your heart, because what do you believe about yourself?
Yeah.
If you believe all the worst, then one, it's going to sit right there and it'll be nurtured and it'll grow.
Yeah.
And then two, check your mouth. It's going to come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
So often you can't be around me and say self-deprecating things
Things, yeah.
because I try to explain your subconscious doesn't know if you're serious or not, if you're
Nope.
joking or not. Your subconscious hears it, and
Mhm.
that's what's running your show, even
Mhm.
though you think it's your conscious mind.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure that with regard to our confidence, we can't just walk around and say, "Oh, I want confidence. I'm
Mm.
building confidence." You got
Yeah.
to check your heart.
Yep.
And that means sitting, and it means looking at what's there. It means pouring what needs to be there.
Yeah.
Watch what's coming out of your mouth about yourself and about other people.
Mm.
And then you also have to check your circle because sometimes we don't have the confidence that we need because we got the wrong people in our circle. We're still too busy people pleasing. We're still too busy looking for affirmation and confirmation
Yeah.
and at a girl in our circle who are just not in a place where they're able to give us that. And
Yeah.
so whether it be a spouse,
Yeah.
whether it be a parent,
Yeah.
whether it be a sibling, whether it
Mhm.
be a best friend from the 3rd grade, you
Yeah.
really have to check your circle because if you've got people that can't pour into you, it's nice to pretend like it
Mm.
doesn't impact you, but it does. So I
Yes.
would say you want to replace your circle with people who are going to lift you up, people who are not going to compare you to them. So no
Yeah.
backhanded comments, no
No.
backhanded compliments.
Yes.
You've got to be around people who genuinely want your success
Yeah.
for you,
Yeah.
who are not necessarily holding your coattails. We've
Yeah.
talked about that
We
before.
have. We
And then
have.
you have to have confidence also because there are going to be some people, this is an aside, I hadn't even thought about this until this moment. There are going to be some people who see you and they'll see what you have and they'll know what a jewel you are
Mhm.
and they'll come after you. And you've got to be able to see through that false sense of
Yeah.
confidence that they try to bestow on you
Mm.
because some people are going after you because you have more confidence than they have.
Mhm.
Some people are going after you because they know that what you have is special, even
Yeah.
if you don't know it, and they would
Yeah.
love to profit from it. They would love to collect off of it and say, that was mine.
Mhm.
So remember when we were talking and I said, you and my other coaching client that were named as 50 most influential pharmacists that
Mhm.
next year, what did I say? I said, and I'm honored
Heard.
to have been a part of their journey. Not, oh, that's me, because you
That's me working. Yeah.
no. I'm
Yeah.
honored that I got a chance to cross their path, and I
Yeah.
pray that something
Yeah.
that I offered during that time helped them to get to that
Yeah.
point, but I'm so proud of them, not because of what I did, I'm proud of them because of what they did.
Okay, so real quick, if you're enjoying this conversation, go ahead and rate and review the podcast. It helps more people find the show and keeps the conversation going. Okay, so let's get back to the conversation. No,
And
it's
so
so true.
yeah.
I think it's really true. And I think like your joy and the encouragement and everything you give, it's so genuine. Like you're listening for a lot of things, but I can never doubt the authenticity because I also know that you will point it out to me. Like I hope you're thinking clearly about this because this is how I'm seeing this. This is how I'm seeing this. Have you thought it through this way, this way, this way? So I can always count on the advice to be super authentic and true because of all of the ways you took the time to know me and understand what I'm in it for. You can sense misalignment the minute you see it, and you're like, we need to right click on this and learn a little bit more about this. For the person that I call this, I ask everyone this one question,
Okay.
and it is, what is one dose of success you have for the person that is starting anew? There is no period that is more uncertain than the ground up period. They have identified what the thing is. They have decided they're going to do the thing. And what is a dose of success as they begin this journey of building what they really feel genuinely they're called to do?
I would say don't take yourself too seriously. If you take yourself too seriously, I think it will cause you to be too rigid. You won't allow, I think the thing that I have learned, even in a call that I had earlier today, was that I have to give myself grace before I even request grace from anyone else.
Yeah.
And so there have been some things that have happened along this journey that I didn't give myself grace. I really honestly believe that when I get to the people that I need to ask for grace from,
Yeah.
they are going to be like, "What? No problem." But in my head, it was so because,
Yeah.
and I had to remind myself, don't take myself too seriously. I'm allowed to mess up. I'm allowed
Yeah.
to not get it 100% right. I'm
Yeah.
allowed for it to not be perfect. And that's a pharmacist thing. If I have
Yeah.
one, we've got to be perfect. And that
Oh,
I
yeah.
say it's the death of you in a business. It
Yeah.
might work for calculating vancomycin troughs, but it doesn't work for life, in my opinion. And so I think that if you can laugh at yourself, if you can give yourself grace and not take yourself too seriously, and if you can know that it's kind of like the rite of passage of life.
Mhm.
Like when we all went to kindergarten, we didn't know all the bumps and bruises we would experience to get
Yeah.
to, the end of college
Yeah.
graduation, but we were willing to go through it. And when we hit the first bump in the road, we didn't go, "Oh, that's it. I quit in second grade. That's
Yeah.
it. Never mind. Nope, this isn't for me." But not taking yourself too seriously, understanding where your goal is and going for it, even if things don't look like, they say the
Yeah.
journey of an entrepreneur. So for us linear thinkers, we think it's
Yeah.
a straight, but
Yeah.
it's like this, and so
A
accept
yarn
that.
ball.
Yes, it's a big yarn ball, and accepting that and not taking yourself too seriously, not comparing yourself,
Yeah.
not saying, "Well, I should be here by now,"
Yeah.
because I think it puts a lot of undue pressure.
It really does.
That would be my advice. Don't take
Yeah.
yourself too seriously.
And it is a very, very useful, valuable, invaluable piece of advice I can attest to personally, thinking of where you should be in the journey. It's a distraction. You are where you are right now. Focus on how to make the most of that and calculating what needs to happen so that you can get to that other place you somehow feel like the journey owes you.
And I think you have to enjoy the journey.
That's true.
So I spoke a couple of weeks ago, and a young lady came up to me and said, "Dr. Dodd, I'm doing A, B, C, and D." I was like, "That's very impressive." And she said, "And I just want to know, am I doing it right?" And I said, "Well, I think that the question we ask is very important because the quality of question we ask
Yeah,
oftentimes lends to the quality of answer that we get." And I
could be.
said, "So I think that we should ask a different question." And I said, "So am I doing the right thing?" I can't answer that because
Yeah,
I think there are so many right things depending on
yeah,
who you are
true,
and what way you decide to go. I
true.
said, "But answer this. Are you enjoying what you're doing?" And she
Mhm.
stepped back like, that is a good question,
Yeah,
because if I said, "Yes, those are all the right things, but you're miserable," then what
yeah,
good is that? Like, we only get this journey, we only get to go this way one time. So, are you enjoying what you're doing?
yeah.
I said, "I'm about to get in my favorite seat," because we know that one of the things I love to do is coach. And so I was already sitting, but I got in my favorite seat
His favorite place.
because I enjoyed getting to the root of what her
Yeah.
question really was, because what she asked me is not what I coached on, because
Da-da-da-da.
that wasn't really her question.
Yeah.
And so, are you enjoying what you're doing? Does it make you go, "Ooh, I'm in my
Mhm.
favorite seat"?
Yeah.
Because if you're not in your favorite seat, but you're trying to get to some finish line that somebody somewhere has placed in front of you and said, "This
Mhm.
is what you should be doing by this time," then is it really worth it?
And it is such an important question because to your point, the journey is a one-way ticket. It's not like a round trip ticket. And if that's true, is it worth it? Is everything you're doing that you're giving your energy to, your time to, because we know that's not measured in negatives, is that worth it?
Right.
I I cannot thank you enough. I will probably never have the right words to thank you for all the ways in which you have enriched my life. And I'm extremely excited for my co-resis and all the other folks who listen to this podcast to discover who you are, because your coming into my life has been transformative for the way I think, for what I say yes and no to. I still remember the fundamentals of a mutually beneficial agreement.
Ma'am.
I still remember the fundamentals. Is it mutually beneficial? If you got to think about it, it is not it, right? So I still carry your voice with me. I still carry the advice with me. And today, all of what you've given here, I hope that someone heard one thing. There's a lot that you were given here today, by the way. But if one thing is all you took away from this episode, I hope that you find it incredibly helpful. But I hope that you heard something that activates you to go after all of what you have decided and identified that you want. I thank you so much for your time. I thank you for your posture, position, your voice, and everything you are in this space, and for the representation that you give us all permission to show up authentically and truly ourselves, and understand that, like, there's no other way to surface other than who we truly, truly are. And I learned that from you. So I appreciate your time this evening very much.
And thank you for the opportunity to pour and be a small part of this amazing journey you're on. I get that proud mama smile when I see one of you all come across my feed. I was so fortunate to get to be a part
Oh
of
my
that young
gosh.
woman's life or that young woman's journey.
If this episode gave you something to think about, something to hold on to, or even something to act on, I want to ask you for one more thing. Take a moment to rate and review the podcast. It feels really small, but it's actually one of the biggest ways you can support this show. It helps more people find these conversations and become part of this community we're building right here on Success and Dosing.